Sure that we cleaned our house up, though, immediately following that vote, because I think it's unfortunate that we even have SUPs, which basically says we're giving you the right and we're going to make exceptions just for you. And generally that's because of either vagueness, political ties, campaign funding, you have it, but it generally amounts to a reason behind it. So yes, I would have voted for that specific one, and immediately the following day, I would have cleaned house as far as giving direction on ideas of how to make it better.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis Rosen.
I am not privy to the amount of infrastructure that was necessary to put the high-rise in, and I don't know what the return on the investment was going to be. I don't know. But what I do know is that our whole zoning and planning is flawed, and we need to make our zones airtight, and we need to make sure that we don't have the same thing go on with all the SUPs that come along. And when we start working on our zoning and permitting, we also need to look at our comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan is way, way too heavy. Over 800 actions in 76 sections. It needs to be refined. We need, by state mandate, to have a comprehensive plan, but we need to make that simple, and we need to make our zoning laws and permitting simple too, and we could see some development start. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg Ruth.
Okay, am I on? Okay. This is a tough one, and I have to agree with Joe on this, that if a person owns private property and the use is legal at the time they own the property, they have a vested right in building legally, and they did that. All they did was come to the city and say that they wanted to build apartments instead of condos. I don't think that's a substantive difference in what they were going to build, and I think that if you asked me to take an oath to follow the laws of the state of Texas and the charter and laws of the city ordinance of the city of Galveston, I would feel a duty to allow people to use their private property the way that state law says they can. But I think there's a deeper issue here, and that's this. Height and density on the seawall and on the beach is a major issue, and I know this came up on the seawall. The question that I think are going to have to address again is how high do we want to allow people to build on the seawall? We have current laws that say you can't build higher than, I believe, 9 stories without a special use permit. We may have to reopen that and look at a broader view, but I do think honestly that the building is too high. But I think legally they were allowed to build.
Thank you. Let's go to Bill Caroga.
What I have voted for, I support small business. But in this case, I would really look at it very hard, and the reason why is this. I think some of the buildings that want to be built, 10, 15 stories, should be east of 6th Street or west of 61st Street, and in between, we should leave it alone. It's historical, it should be left that way, and I really don't think that I would support the high-rise between 6th Street and 61st Street.
Thank you. Jerry Kinnear.
This is difficult for me because I really don't have all the facts. So one of my concerns would be, what if we had a storm, a really big storm, and the building was undermined? Who's going to be responsible for that? And is that something that the city's going to have to clean up? I think that simplifying some of the overlay zones would help. But as Mr. Roof said, and I'm taking him at his word because he's a very smart professor, that if it's a legal, if it's something that's legal, that this person owns the property and it's legal for him to do it, then I would vote for it.
Carolyn Dalton.
As I did on the Planning Commission, anytime a development came before me, I always did my homework. Again, I would visit with the neighbors. I would read the comments that would come in. I don't know all the specifics about this project, but by looking and hearing what everybody is stating about it tonight, and also where it is in the vicinity and everything, I would probably most likely have voted for it. But once again, I would make sure that any type of development that is built next to the beach and next to neighborhoods would actually also protect the neighbors and listen to their comments and incorporate those into the development.
Thank you. Cheryl Rozier.
In Galveston, we have a zoning board of adjustments and a planning commission that are appointed by the council members. Cases are brought to council typically have gone through the vetting process 1, if not 2 times. This project was sent to council with a recommendation to approve from both of these boards that were made by council. If we are not going to take their advice into consideration when making decisions, why should we have them at all? And that's a different debate altogether, of course. But the other issue for me is the land is private property, and I do support property rights. And if it is a legal and permissible use, yes, I would have voted for it.
Thank you. Elizabeth Beaton.
Well, what a cop-out, guys. It's not illegal. It's not a legal and permissible use without an SUP. They don't have the right to build on that property for that use until the council says okay. And the council has the discretion in granting or denying an SUP to restrict it in any way they choose. So if the council chose to approve the SUP, they could have approved it at 5 stories instead of 20. The ZBA acted without authority in granting the so-called variance. The infrastructure is not there for it. It's going to be expensive to add it. It's endangering the seawall, and it's contrary to the public process that led to the height restrictions along the seawall. If we want to change that, we need to do it by going through the process that got us there in the first place, not on a case-by-case basis.
Thank you. Connie Woods, District 1.
Well, Mr. Lee, I have a secret I'd like to tell tonight, and that is believing 2 things. That's God and the United States Constitution. That's my belief. If we have a height and density ordinance, then we should follow that height and density ordinance word by word. When you start deviating to the left or to the right, that's when you're bringing in your own confusion. You see, rewrite it. And I'm glad that Elizabeth brought up the special use permit. They give me something else to go on past your 2 minutes. I'll go back. If we go through the process of the council in terms of the special use permit, then that's the process that should be followed from my understanding that I'm getting from you. Is that correct? Okay. So therefore, my position would be to follow that height and density ordinance word by word, and I think your wife worked on it, what, about 10 years ago, Brenda Donovan. Is that your wife? Okay.
Beats me.
Thank you very much.
I felt so good to be included. Okay, Cornelia Harris-Banks.
I think it says the Constitution and laws of the state of Texas and the charter, laws, and ordinance of the city of Galveston, so help me God. So therefore, I will then, in fact, go along with the oath that I take. Now, my understanding from everyone is that the ordinance that allows has already been set. So we know what that is already. I think the next issue was the special permit for the number of apartments versus condominiums. That again has to come back from that department that sent it in, and then I think the council then gets together and works on that. So therefore, after I am there to sit and hear what the issue is, then I would make my decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Boy, all I know is that was one really big variance. Okay. Now, here's another rabble-rousing question that might be of great interest and get some excitement here. And this is for everybody. We're going to start with them. Current council recently addressed the authority of the mayor, suggesting examples of overreaching and lobbying on various issues without informing council with sufficient notice. Please give us your interpretation of the mayor's powers outlined in the city charter and your view of the mayor's role and authority. And we're going to start with you, Cornelia.
Well, again, we have a city manager form of government, and we know that we have 6 districts and 1 mayor. We then know that the mayor is, I should say, 1/7 of that group. And so therefore, if there are any special things that have happened, I'm not certain that I know that that's been going on this year. I've been hearing and looking at the television. But once that I know that when we have a hurricane, many times the council gives the mayor the responsibility at that time. And when you do give the mayor that responsibility, then they are in turn the ones who does the lobby and so forth at that time. But other than that, it is 1/7 of the group.
Thank you. Charles Woods.
Well, here again, Ms. Lee, with 4 individuals running for mayor, it must be very important. I can understand that it basically says that the mayor position is somewhat ceremonial and to be over meetings, preside over meetings, and word for word. But hopefully, as what Ms. Banks was saying earlier, during the emergencies, I believe that the council can vote to give the mayor additional powers. So I think here again, we must follow the rules and regulations of the charter in terms of the mayor and his power. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth Beaton.
Well, we are inching toward a strong mayor form of government de facto. And that hasn't started recently. It's been going on for probably about 8 years. Our system isn't going to work if we have one thing in writing and another thing in reality. The mayor's duties are ceremonial. Otherwise, the mayor is one of the 7 members of council. And ultimately, this is going to be the responsibility of the city manager. The city manager has to claim his authority, assert his authority, and when any member of council oversteps, which all of us are going to do at times, the city manager is going to have to politely but firmly tell the council members that that's his role.
Thank you. Cheryl Rosen.
I believe the role of the mayor is purely ceremonial and to run the meetings, make sure that we have decorum and order at our meetings. Thank you, George. And basically, I understand that the mayor appears to be a figurehead for citizens, for people outside the community, somebody that they feel like they should approach to ask specific questions. At that very time, that person, whoever the mayor is, can politely take their information, let them know that they're going to bring it to the attention of the city manager, and then from there on, the city manager needs to take charge and deal with the request, the issue, whatever the question may be, and only have one vote just equal with all of the rest of us. And I do support that.
Thank you. Carolyn Tarleton.
Well, it sounds like Galvestonians want to have a mayor that has say and a bite in the campaign. But unfortunately, he is just as one of us, at just one vote, and he does do ceremonial duties. What it sounds like what Galveston wants and what they're asking for is maybe we need to have a charter change and change our form of government so that the city council member and the mayors are more accountable to the Galvestonians instead of having the city manager, the one that you have to go through. I think that's probably where we're going to be headed to. We need to have a change in Galveston.
Okay. Jerry Kinnear.
According to our charter, as you all have heard, we have a city manager form of government. The mayor is ceremonial, and he does preside over the council meetings and at other ceremonies. The state has given him the authority to act as the head of government in a disaster. If you want that changed, you're going to have to petition the state and ask them to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Quiroga.
I'm not going to repeat everything that's just said. I think Elizabeth Beaton did a great job on Channel 16 describing how the mayor overstepped his authority. But one thing that's coming up that we're not looking at is what's coming up next month, June 1st. June 1st is the start of hurricane season. And without the proper people on that council, we're going to turn over the responsibility over to the mayor, who has really, in my opinion, no experience in handling hurricanes. The last hurricane night, everybody knew that when people were trying to come back in, they were held up for 2-3 weeks, and that created a problem because of the lack of the experience of knowing what to do. I'm classified as a safety engineer. I've worked at the division out at Dow Chemical for a private company. I know these things, and I can help with council when if it happens again. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move back up to Mount Olympus again, and we're going to start with Mr. Jaworski, current mayor.
All right, to answer the question, y'all know there's certain enumerated powers of the mayor. He runs the meeting, he sets an issue on the agenda, and it takes 2 council members to set an issue on the agenda. The mayor is always the emergency management director, even today. But in an emergency declaration, he then becomes the legislative power separately. He appoints housing authority commissioners. Sometimes there's special appointments that we never even hear about, like to the pension review board. Practically, you are the representative of the city. So for example, if someone comes to town and says, look, I've got a $10 million idea and I'd really like to talk to you about it, Mayor. I don't want my mayor to go, you know, I can't talk to you, man. I'm sorry. So there has to be a level of trust here. I mean, I'm not paid for this job, so it's not like I'm trying to get one over on anyone. It's important, I think, to hear the person out, give them your true thoughts. It's a First Amendment deal. And to do it with the city's best interest. And then you always hand it over to the city manager or the economic development director. That's the way it's done. You never make a decision by yourself.
Thank you. Bo Rollins.
I alluded to this earlier that as a lineman, you block and make holes for the running back. And to me, that's what I'm very much comparing to the mayor of Galveston. I think we've given the mayor of Galveston position just a little bit too much respect, because I think the respect should lie in the community of Galveston and what we've done to lead the community and how much we sacrifice to make it a better place. It's very important to me to have you understand that at GISD, we have a very similar form of government. We have a superintendent that should be just like our city manager, and then we have trustees that guide that superintendent, very similar to the council members guide the city manager. If you've noticed, Channel 16 has been a lot of fun to watch, but Channel 17 is boring. And the reason Channel 17 is boring is because the job is being well done at GISD. And that's my plan, to be the mayor of Galveston as well.
Thank you. Mr. Rosen.
I think the mayor should be a person of integrity. And I think the mayor should, if a developer wants to come to the city and have a $10 million or $100 million development, then the mayor should put it on the agenda for council. And council can ask the mayor or another council member to talk to him and bring it that way. It has to go through the council form of government. There is no economic development person on staff right now. We don't have anybody downtown doing that. The most important thing the Galveston mayor does is appoint the Galveston Housing Authority Commissioners. And I believe that when I appoint the commissioners, they will take a fresh look at our housing situation, and we will issue vouchers, and we will challenge the conciliation agreement.
Thank you. Greg Roof.
I believe that the most important duty of the mayor is to be a facilitator on council. One of the things that you cannot ignore is that council members come from a diverse background. They have different viewpoints on things like building high-rises. Maybe we shouldn't build them. I took a viewpoint that I would protect private property rights, your home and anyone's home. I want to go back to this oath that we just took, or that we will take, and I have taken before. It's my duty to uphold the laws of the state of Texas, the United States and Texas Constitution, the charter and laws of the city and ordinances of the city of Galveston, so help me God. Sometimes it's not popular to make decisions regarding high-rises, but I want to promise you something. I will not always make popular decisions. I will always listen to people, and I'll always listen to council members. But I want you to know that there's another part of the equation, and that is the protection of private property rights. You have a First Amendment right to speak. I would respect that right when you come to council. You have other rights that stem from the Texas Constitution, like open beaches. You have rights that deal with questions of building, and I would protect your private property rights, even when it's not popular.
All right, this one's for the mayors. This came from the audience tonight, about 10 minutes before we started. We'll start with Greg Roof. Is there a compromise about public housing that could move Galveston beyond this debate?
Yes, that is that we could build no public housing and move to a regional solution where we go to the Houston-Galveston Area Council. We work with other cities and counties in a wide area to deconcentrate poverty in the Houston metropolitan area. Poverty is not a Galveston problem. Poverty is an American problem. Galveston should not be asked to go it alone. We should work with other cities, other counties, and the Houston metropolitan area to tackle this problem together. I want to tell you something. As a teacher, I know that growing up in public housing is one of the worst things that can happen for the potential success of any student. One of the things we have got to do is to put young children who are in poverty situations into school districts that have high quality so that when they go to school, they have just as much chance of becoming a doctor or a lawyer or a businessman as anybody else. And we need to deconcentrate public housing to help those kids out. That's what I want to do.
Thank you. Mr. Rosen.
HUD's own dictate tells you do not put public housing in disaster-prone areas where there is no job growth. The conciliation agreement was signed by nobody from Galveston. We are being forced into a situation that we do not have to be put in. We can fight this thing and we can win. We need to go to the voucher system where our people in need of assistance can go where there's job opportunities and not build any more public housing on the island. We already have over 500 Section 8 vouchers at the end of Hurds Lane in the Marina Landing in Baywalk. We have 192 vouchers in Sandpiper Cove. We have other vouchers. Those are issued from the Houston Housing Authority, by the way. The voucher system is the way to go.
Thank you. Bo Rollins.
I was the very first candidate to announce moving to opportunity vouchers, which allows a family to have a voucher issued by the federal government that can take their family to any place in the United States, to any school district in the United States, and have an opinion or have a choice to where they'd like to live and raise their family. I was the very first candidate to announce that. My opinion is yes, this can be rectified pretty quickly. We have 7,500 vacant, blighted, dilapidated, however you want to name it, homes in Galveston that to me are opportunity. And if they don't become opportunity and we don't deal with those now, they're going to become our problem. Flooding the market with public housing is not the answer. The answer is already here. We need to make the most of that opportunity of the housing bank we have here in Galveston.
Thank you. Mayor Jaworski.
One of the things, if you want to be mayor, is you need to be able to see the compromise that's on the table. That's what we have right now, folks. One thing I want you to know about affordable housing in Galveston is that the Galveston Housing Authority, under my leadership, and with the authority commissioners that I appointed, have forever changed the rules. Now, in order to get from the wait list into a home, you have to be a veteran, a senior, disabled, or work 30 hours a week. Those are the rules, that's a fact. What I want you all to know is that the compromise on the table right now is something for everybody. The scattered site homes are out, off the table. There will be no public homes built in the neighborhoods. 170 housing choice vouchers that exist now in Galveston under this plan would be converted to address-specific vouchers, so Galveston landlords can continue earning those rents. 170 families are currently being served that way. That leaves 359 to be built in the superior, only thing HUD will approve, mixed income format. That's good for Galveston. That's a compromise.
Thank you. All right, as mentioned earlier, hurricane season is rapidly approaching. Just this past Sunday, there was an editorial in Patrick Graham's column, actually, and he was talking about Dr. William Merrill's plan for the Ike Dike. Now, that was a significant topic of discussion following the storm, but not much has been heard about that since. Dr. William Merrill's concept was discussed in that recent editorial, and he wrote that a champion is needed for the construction of a coastal spine to protect the island from bay storm surges. What is your position on going ahead with this and the reality of it actually being approved? And if you get time, what steps can we take to prevent disasters like Ike in the future? Or